The meeting is open for the sharing of testimonies of healing through Christian Science. Jim from Arizona, go ahead.
Good evening. I recently received a copy of the banner and was most grateful to see the article concerning our church. It provided a real boost to me. So often the articles in the banner depict the downward spiral of the mother church that it is taking right now. And this article summarized the growth of our church. I am most grateful. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd also like to mention that that article that Jim mentioned is on the homepage of our website as well. Read it. Jeremy.
I am very grateful for the changes that Christian Science has brought about in my thinking and in my life. This coming weekend is the Come to Plainfield event, and my practitioner has arranged for 2 out-of-town members to stay with me. In the past, such a thing would have had me freaked out and nauseous just thinking of it. Now, however, I'm very much looking forward to this. I feel nothing but joy that so many blessings have been bestowed on me since coming to this church, and I am happy to share in those blessings. When I think back on how stricken I used to be when dealing with people, it makes me laugh now. It's hard to even remember the pain that it brought me, but at the time it felt very real. Nothing I ever read or tried back then even made a dent in that so-called social anxiety I went through. Christian Science, as I am learning at this church, did break through all that, and without the need for a concentrated long-term effort. This healing came as a natural result of working with the lessons each week and with practitioner support. Within a very short time, I was no longer debilitated by the thought of being around people or the need to pick up the phone and make a call. I'm so grateful for this science and this church and for my practitioner, for all the blessings and healings I have received here. Thank you.
Thank you. Chardell.
Good evening, and thank you for the readings on Safe in God Everywhere and our beautiful music. My gratitude goes out to God, Christ Jesus, and Mary Baker Eddy. Here at the Plainfield Christian Science Church Independent, all the truths of life and love are taught and offered in a way that transforms lives, purposes, and actions, including mine, in such a way that the true meaning for our existence comes to light. This happens as we listen, pray, and learn. Some basic things for me have been obedience to instruction from a practitioner. Another is practicing what is taught. For instance, showing Christly kindness and respect, which demonstrates being pure in heart. We have many resources to go to, and one of the articles that I read often is called God's Perfect Plan, found in the September 2017 Love is the Liberator magazine on page 21. And I'd like to quote from that. God has already done anything that needs to be done according to his perfect plan, with order and harmony in every detail. And it goes on. Let God's will be done in all areas of our lives, end quote. When we live in mind, God, we see and experience him everywhere. Thank you.
Thank you. Colleen from Massachusetts, go ahead.
Good evening. Mary Baker Eddy writes, in Miscellaneous Writings, truth talked and not lived rolls on the human heart a stone. That's on page 293. Before coming to the Plainfield Christian Science Church Independent, I had an ache in my heart because I didn't know how to live Christian Science. I am very grateful for the practitioners and the members here at the Plainfield Christian Science Church Independent who actually live and practice pure Christian Science based on the rules given by Mary Baker Eddy, based on the teachings of Christ Jesus. Now I feel a great sense of relief because I'm able to handle seeming problems that come up daily. My heart no longer aches, but it is filled with love. That love that I love to share with others. Thank you for tonight's meeting, the music, and the readings.
Thank you. Gary.
I'm so grateful to be learning and seeing how God does care for us in every way, in every part of our life. I was reminded recently of an experience that I had. It was a little while ago. My business partner returned from a business trip one day to find that his computer in our office wasn't working. And he was checking everything. And this is a guy who was very good with computers. And he couldn't make it work. He tried everything. He even considered setting up a backup computer, which would have taken forever to do. And and for us, it's debilitating because if we can't use our computers, we can't do business. Well, that morning, I had spoken with a practitioner and asked for help because I had to go into New York for some meetings. And the practitioner told me, among other things, to take with me the fact that there is only one mind, not many minds, but only one mind. And that mind brings harmony to everybody and everything involved. Well, when I found out about my partner's computer, I thought, well, this applies to him and his computer. There is only one mind in control of that computer. So I went off to my meeting, and a little bit later that day, I got an excited phone call from my business partner. He said, "You'll never guess what happened. The most amazing thing happened." He said, "Right after you left, somebody who shares office space with us but doesn't work for us had a problem with his computer, and his computer expert came over right away, fixed his computer, and while he was there, my partner said, 'Well, would you mind taking a look at mine?' And he said, 'No problem.' And he did so, and within 5 minutes, his computer was up and running and working perfectly. He was so excited. He said, 'We are amazingly lucky that this guy showed up just when he did.' Well, I laughed. I said, 'Yes, but it wasn't luck. We can be amazingly grateful that God heard our prayer, our need, and took care of us.' And he heartily agreed. I was so grateful to see God answering this prayer as quickly and effectively as it was. I'm so grateful to learn that things like this don't happen by coincidence. There is no such thing as luck. God cares for us when we allow him to. And I'm so grateful to be learning this in this church. So grateful for the help I received and everything that I'm learning about Christian Science and God's care for us. So good to be here tonight.
Thank you. Jeff.
Until it was spelled out at a recent Bible study meeting here at Plainfield, I really did not know how to pray correctly in Christian Science. I always thought prayer was asking God for things on my checklist of things to do, but I learned it's not that at all. So, I got that one wrong, but now I have learned at Bible study 3 things to help me pray correctly in Christian Science. Number 1, pray unceasingly. I figure if I pray enough, I'll eventually get the hang of it. And that's what's happening. And I'm grateful for prayer, restoring my soul, as in the prayer, He restoreth my soul. He leadeth me in the paths of righteousness for His name's sake. The second thing I learned is to rejoice. I'm still working on that one, but it's coming along too. And I don't intend to be a sluggard in the race, to quote Mary Baker Eddy. The third thing is to give thanks in all things. Isn't that what we're all doing here tonight in giving our testimonies? Giving thanks each in our own way for our God, who is a good God, and Mary Baker Eddy for this wonderful science, which is her gift to us.
Thank you. Linda.
Thank you very much for the readings tonight and the music. I am very grateful for our daily calendar statements. I have put the calendar where I can see it throughout the day, and I often keep past pages in my pocket. On Monday, my son was stressed over a scheduling problem. He inadvertently was a month behind, and before he could fix the schedule, he had to make an appointment with a man who had a reputation of being very difficult. Timing had become important, and there were many unanswered questions. Pressure and personalities, both especially challenging for my son. Being at Plainfield, working with a practitioner here, and practicing the practical steps taught here is changing the way I respond to the world around me. Instead of reacting to his anxiety, panicking myself, and reverting to my old habits of trying to fix things, I turned immediately to God in prayer. I affirmed his God-given strength and ability to do what was needed with confidence and clarity. I had no thought about the outcome. I used ideas from the article Place that can be found on our website. I continued this whenever negative thoughts would come and would replace them with the Word of God. On Tuesday, I read the calendar statement, quote, "All God's ideas work together in perfect harmony," end quote, by Adam H. Dickey. It was the perfect thought for me as I realized I needed to think rightly about the professor that was involved. The statement also came back to me while I was mailing my taxes on the last day that they were due. At the post office, I experienced cooperation, cheerfulness, order, and efficiency. My son went forward with his day and was able to meet with the person without incident and in perfect timing, and a schedule was completed. My practitioner continually reminds me of the importance of watching my thinking and expectations. She told me that others will live up to my expectations. This was a very great lesson for me. As a previous testifier mentioned, that the many years of trying to address social anxiety in our family was unaffected by anything we would read or do, until coming here and seeing it come under the authority of Christ through this science that was given to us by Mary Baker Eddy and clearly taught here. Thank you.
Thank you. Fairley from Maryland, go ahead.
Thank you. I'm very grateful for the helpful readings on the the safety we have in God everywhere. And I'm so grateful. I feel grateful and I think about it. How grateful I am for God's ever-presence and His protection. And tonight I also want to express my gratitude for being a member of the Plainfield Church. Before I came here, in the midst of a deep depression, I searched for a practitioner who could help me. And I called 2 or 3 in the information of the Mother Church, from the Mother Church. And one of them that I was told about never called me back. I left a message and asked to call, but I was never called back. And that happened a couple of different times. And then I called a practitioner, and she seemed very nice, and I thought maybe I could work with her and get some help. I was still trying to work in Christian Science without really being very successful. And unfortunately, though, after I called her once or twice, even though, everything seemed to be going all right, she was almost impossible to reach. And I would try her, and sometimes I would try to sort of call the moment her answering machine would start be working for that morning, the timing of her 9 o'clock or whatever. I would try to be the absolute first one that could ever call. But it still didn't work, and I just finally gave up. And I was searching, and I'm so grateful to God, because on the Internet, I found Plainfield. And I am so grateful for the constant availability, the ever-presence of my Plainfield practitioner. It's made such a difference in my life to be a member of the Plainfield Church, brought me out of the depression. And I'm grateful for everything that goes on here, for all that's given us here, and for all the members. So thank you very much for this meeting tonight. Thank you for everything.
Thank you. This is Bruce. I'd like to add my thanks tonight for our lesson sermons, because last week I had a healing that came from an idea that was in our lesson that week. What was going on was I was expecting someone to call me so that we could have a discussion. He can give me some information. And it seemed like he just wasn't going to do it. And I tried several different ways to get him to make this phone call to me. And I was just getting a little miffed about it. And then I remembered reading in the lesson that week, last week, where Jesus was referencing the sheep that heard his voice and followed him, where he said, "My Father, which gave them me, is greater than all, and no man is able to pluck them out of my Father's hand." And when I remembered reading that, I got to ask myself, well, whose hand do you think I'm in? If I really am the follower of Christ, I am in the hand of God, and therefore no man or circumstance is going to rob me of the peace and confidence of being in his hand by allowing me to get upset over something that somebody else is, what appeared to me, failing to do. So I just said that. I am in God's hand. And not only that, this other person who I'm expecting a phone call from, he is in God's hand. And this is a universal truth for all mankind. It's God's hand that is on all of it. And no man is going to take us out of God's hand. Well, I found my peace coming back, and I was no longer miffed about it, but was rather just rejoicing in what I was doing at the moment. And after that, the gentleman called. We had a wonderful conversation, resolved a lot of things, and it was harmonious after that. So I'm thankful for our lessons and thankful for this wonderful statement of truth that Jesus gave us. And I'm so grateful for this church. Luba from Ohio. Go ahead.
Good evening. I'm so grateful for the growth and changes that have come into my life since coming to Plainfield. Most recently, I became aware of the positive changes in my relationships. Situations that I thought were impossible have seen a beautiful unfoldment since this change in my thinking. I have left it all up to God rather than praying for my expectations. I'm so grateful to Christian Science, Plainfield, and to my wonderful practitioner. Thank you for tonight's reading, and I'm so happy to be here.
Thank you. Wendy from Georgia. Go ahead.
Good evening from Savannah, Georgia. I'm calling in to simply express my gratitude this evening for the inspirational reading shared by Florence about being safe in God everywhere, and also for the lovely hymns that were selected to be sung. After having a particularly challenging day at work today when mortal minds seem to be on the attack, it's been so uplifting to listen to the readings during this service and reaffirm that to those leaning on the sustaining infinite, today is big with blessings. And if I lean on God, I will be safe from any attacks that seem to come at me. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Sharon.
One of my first healings in Christian Science was of allergies. When someone would cut the grass, I'd have to be inside with the windows closed and the door, and I would suffer greatly. I asked the practitioner in this church if this could be healed, and she said, definitely. And she told me one idea of God cannot harm another idea of God. Well, I was healed immediately. That was many years ago, and this weekend we had a beautiful weekend, warm, and people were out mowing their lawn, and instead of being in the house with the windows and doors closed, I had them all open, and I even went for a walk and worked in the yard. I am just so grateful to God. When He heals, it's permanent. And I am so grateful for practitioner help and for all the blessings I've received in this church. And thank you for the readings.
Thank you. Craig.
I'd like to give thanks to our practitioner for support when I had taken a trip recently to Concord. I would travel to North Carolina from New Jersey. And it's a good wise trip, and my sister went with me. But I really appreciate the practitioner because of God's been very good to me. And my relatives that are in the South don't like to preach, but they are God-loving, but it's an older style religion that they take. And at one point I felt somewhat awkward to be with them because they were simple, good people, but I knew God had so much more for them. And things didn't always work out well for them, as it has for me. So I was a little uneasy about going down, but I was met with such love and appreciation. I give that thanks to God. Tried to be a help where I could, and finished and came back quickly and safely. And I guess the universal language of love comes through everything, conquers everything, and I do very much thank the practitioner for I felt safe in the trip. Thank you. For Mary Baker Eddy.
Thank you. Lil.
I keep remembering a wonderful recent healing. I had a regular checkup with my dentist. Before going, I asked practitioner for help, and she agreed to help. She said to go seeing and expressing Christ. After the exam, first I was told all looked good. Then an x-ray showed an infection in one tooth and that it may have to be extracted. They wanted me to go to my specialist dentist and also get medication beforehand. I told the other dentists that I'd get back to them the next week with my decision. I then called my practitioner again with the results and reported there was never any discomfort. I told her I was feeling uneasy about my decision to wait on going forward, and she said that no mind could rest on my decision. She also said that this was not God's verdict. This was aggressive mental suggestion and be sure to be working for the world. She also said to read in Science and Health, pages 244 to 248, which covers so much, such as life is eternal, no aging, no decay, and many more healing messages, so powerful and comforting. I continually thank God for creating me in his image and likeness. Perfect. I took no further action, and all has been well. I am so grateful for practitioners' prayers and for God's unending love. And thank you for those wonderful readings.
Thank you. Florence, go ahead.
A beautiful thought came to me recently about safety. And it says that harmony is included in safety. So then when I declare that the law of perfect harmony and love is the law to everything I think, say, and do, it means I know that my safety is in God everywhere. I'm so grateful for this thought, because wherever we are, all those fearful thoughts that come can be vanquished with this one fact, that our safety is in God. I also found something interesting this week about the Psalm 121. It was the psalm that David Livingstone, the missionary who went to Africa and did so much good work, who Mr. Henry Drummond writes about. It is the psalm that he used before he set off on his journey. And when you look at the history, how much he went through and how he came through it all, it's not surprising that this psalm did something for him. And then I have a testimony from someone who recently called, very recent, about this psalm. She writes, about a year and a half, I met a couple with 2 kids in a European country. I could not really speak with the lady because of language barriers. However, it turned out that in a few days she was about to leave the country with both of her kids to move back to her original country in South America, where she had been longing to live, being dissatisfied with her current life. It seemed she made a hard decision, leaving her husband and father of her children, and was in deep depression because she felt overwhelming guilt and sadness. I was turning to God to see what I could use to help her. And the words came, and I did not know this message, but it said, the Lord shall preserve thy going out and thy coming in from this time forth and even forevermore. What stood out to me was that the promise included that she was going to be coming in as well. And it was a joyful promise, even if it did not necessarily mean that she would return physically. So I printed the psalm in her language and underlined this line for her and gave it to her. She was very grateful for it and receptive to the idea. I have not heard of this family since then until the day before yesterday. I called this husband for something, and by the way, asked him how his family was doing and if they would be back. He happily said, "Oh yes, they are back for nearly a year now, enjoying life." I was so grateful for this happy news and how it beautifully proves that God really guides those who dare to listen to him and that his promises are always kept.
Thank you. Mary.
Okay, tonight I have a few things to read. The first from our church website bulletin board from Florida. After listening to a recent testimony, I was thankful for the suggestion to read prose works in chronological order. I have been treating the book as a library, opening and reading a smattering of random sections. What a difference to start at the beginning and to slowly begin to digest the book from start to finish. Over a short period, I became so absorbed I had trouble putting it down. I always read Science and Health daily, but now I've added prose works. So many things have become clearer to my understanding. Thank you for the Wednesday night meetings and for all the wonderful testimonies. And then this note from New Jersey. Dear friends at Plainfield, I just wanted to express my gratitude to this church for all the opportunities you so lovingly and freely provide. I'm looking forward to joining you all in love and prayer in the Plainfield Day, another labor of love that this church is providing for all of us to come together in oneness and in prayer. Please find enclosed my donation to put toward this God-directed day. With love and gratitude. And then a short testimony from Iowa. Thank you, God, for Christian Science and Plainfield Church and the faithful practitioners and this blessed church. To have a safe haven and a good, loving God is what I desire so much, and I have found that here. God bless. I'm very grateful tonight for those beautiful readings on God's protecting power. I know that all of those of you traveling to and from Plainfield this weekend will be safe in God's care and can use many of the beautiful readings, including that wonderful Psalm 121. We're all so looking forward to seeing you, and it will be a gathering of God's people, and that's the purpose, so we can all go strengthened and to do God's work better. Today, Elizabeth, one of our members, had sent me an article. Perhaps many of you have heard about it. There was a problem with a southwestern plane. It had to make an emergency landing because one of the engines, I think it blew up or something. Anyway, the article was about the pilot who landed the plane, and her name was Tammy Jo Schultz. And it said she was the first female fighter pilot. And there were 149 people on board. But what was most interesting to me was it said that she was a Christian, and that she acknowledged that this captain's chair, the pilot's chair, gave her the opportunity to witness Christ on almost every flight. And as you know, in quite a dire circumstance, she was able to land that plane with the vast majority of people safe. And I thought, once again, it was a Christian prayer that was operating and that turned what could have been a horrific situation into one that was not. And they said that passengers on board were saying that there was certainly divine intervention and that God has sent his angels to watch over us. I thought, what a beautiful demonstration. And it always works. And this is why, as we go about our day, we must always be lights. We must always be ready to have this prayer in our heart, because it can turn any situation around and make it a much better one. Mrs. Eddy has said in Science and Health that security for the claims of harmonious and eternal being is found only in divine science, and how true that is. I was so grateful to be reminded of this for this wonderful article, which gratefully brought out what really saved the situation. They did emphasize her training, but it was more than the training. It was her prayer, her Christliness. It works every time. I'm so grateful to be here tonight for the beautiful readings, for the beautiful music. It's so great to have Jim here with us and to be with you all. And thank you for your testimonies.
Thank you.